Hello, welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. Today we are going to do our November wrap up. So we're going to talk about all the books that I read in November, and that was only 4. So this will be pretty quick. I think this is the smallest amount of books I read at all the whole year, but November was pretty busy for me. I did some overtime shifts at work. I had some rehearsals that I ran at the dance studio. I hosted Thanksgiving at my house for the first time, so it was pretty busy. So first we're going to talk about the only book that I read for Historathon, and Historathon was hosted this month by Gloria Z. Thompson, On the Middle Shelf, and Lindsay's Little Library. And so they were reading historical fiction books all month long, and I attempted to read 2 other books and ended up DNFing them. So Crow Mary by Katherine Grissom is the only one that I actually finished, and Kathleen Grissom also read The Kitchen House, which I have not read yet, but spoiler alert, I am going to try that one out. So I did give this 3 stars and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like spectacular. So this is historical fiction, but it's based on a real woman's story. And this book is Crow Mary's real story. So the author actually worked very closely with Crow Mary's family to be able to tell the story exactly as it happened. So I think that's part of the reason I didn't connect with it as much, because we know that real life is not as interesting as fiction, right? So I kind of wish that the story had been embellished a little bit, but I understand why it wasn't, because they wanted to tell the story exactly how it happened. But basically, Crow Mary is an Indigenous Native American, and she marries a white man, and they move to Montana and Canada and a couple of other places. They move around, but it's just a story of resiliency and remaining true to yourself and holding true to what you know in your heart to be your roots and your values. And it was pretty sad. Her husband was a fur trader, and he ended up making some not great decisions, and Crow Mary had to make a lot of very adult grown-up decisions at a very young age for her family and for herself and for her husband. And it showed a part of Native American history that I wasn't really exposed to a whole lot before this. So I do feel like I learned a lot, and it was interesting, and I do appreciate the historical accuracy of the book. But overall, I just had a really hard time connecting, and I felt like only Crow Mary's character was developed and there wasn't a whole lot of development in the other characters. Then for Nonfiction November, I did read 2 books, the first being My Sweet Angel by John Glatt, and this is a true crime nonfiction. And this is about Lacey Spears, who was sentenced to 20 years in prison in the year 2015 for the murder of her son. And it is a Munchausen by proxy story, and if you know, that's something that I'm super interested in. And so I did enjoy this. I learned a lot. It was shocking, it's gruesome, it's horrific, the things that went on in this story. But I felt like we lived through Lacey's story, like kind of through her eyes, and then we had to go back and relearn about it through Facebook posts that were like read to us basically, or shown to us through the book. And then we had to experience it all again when we went through the trial and the court case and all of the witnesses and testimonies. So I felt like it was just overkill. I felt like I already had a handle on what had happened, and it just felt like it was repeating itself over and over again, and it wasn't giving any additional information each time. So I wish that it had maybe started with the court cases and then gone back and filled in from Lacey's childhood up until this point, instead of like telling her entire life story and then all of the Facebook posts that she made about Garnett and then all of the court case and everything. So it just felt like a little bit much, and it did not need to be as long as it was. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I did give it 3 stars. And then the other book I read for Nonfiction November was Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I read this as a part of Krista from Books and Jams, her Patreon. This was her book read of the month, and I've always wanted to read this book. I can't believe I've never picked it up, and I did enjoy it. I learned a lot about especially habit stacking. Like, I felt like that was something different that this kind of brought to the idea of just like trying to live a better life, and integrating habits into your life and goals and things like that was habit stacking, and taking something little that you do without even needing to think about it and adding the new habit onto that. So like, I wake up and I know I'm going to go into the bathroom and brush my teeth. So then habit stacking would be that thing that you want to integrate into your life, doing it right after. So if it's taking vitamins. It would be, okay, I wake up, I brush my teeth, I take my vitamins, and just slowly integrating it in, as opposed to trying to create a whole new schedule around the goal you want, which is something that I struggle with. I want to like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this new workout routine. I'm going to create this whole schedule around this workout routine, when that's not feasible. It needs to be stacked on top of things that I already naturally do and don't really have to think about. That was definitely something, and there was other things that I took away from this, but overall I felt the way I do with a lot of self-help books, which is that kind of tries to reinvent the wheel, and it just ends up being kind of like the same thing over and over again. It felt a little bit repetitive and monotonous by the end, but I did enjoy this. I do definitely see why it has sold over 1 million copies, and I did give it 3 stars. And then last we have the only thriller that I read this month, and also my favorite book that I read this month, and that is Indy. Anyways, Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. This is the second book by Ashley Winstead that I've read, and the second one that I've also given 4 stars. And I read this because of my friend Jesse's book club, the Sleep When I'm Dead book club. I will link their live discussion because Jesse and Elizabeth from the channel Reading Riley discussed this book, and at the beginning of that live show they also had Ashley Winstead on the live and were able to talk to her and ask her questions, and it was a really interesting author interview. And Ashley seems like such a neat, cool person and just so down to earth, and I just really enjoyed hearing about her process and about what her life is like, and she just seems like somebody that I would love to have for my friend, so that makes me even more excited to read more of her books. But this is kind of like a dark version of Where the Crawdads Sing. So it's about Ruth, who lives in a very small Louisiana town, and basically it's kind of like Footloose, where like the pastor and the church kind of runs everything, and the pastor decides like what people read, what people listen to. Like the old school Southern Baptist state of thinking runs the whole town. And Ruth is just really trying to break out of that. She's tired of being the pastor's child that just has to be perfect all the time. And she really starts rocking the boat a little bit and kind of exposing all of the things that are wrong with this town. And she falls in love with Everett, who is kind of this nomadic boy in the neighborhood. And so it really is like a coming of age story. I thought this was gritty. It was a slow burn and definitely a character study, but it didn't feel slow at all. It felt like nothing was happening, but at the same time, everything was happening, and it had a really neat ending, and I just really, really enjoyed this book. I definitely think that physically reading this is the way to go versus the audiobook. I did read the audiobook at parts, but I just felt like I was able to fly through the pages the way the writing style is, and the audiobook narrator is not who I would have picked for Ruth, so I had a hard time kind of like connecting to it because I already had an image in my head of what Ruth should sound like. But overall, I did really enjoy this book, and I gave it 4 stars. And also, this copy, I almost forgot to mention this, this copy is actually signed by Ashley Winstead because Jessie went and saw her when she was on tour, and she got her to sign this book, and she did a giveaway on her Discord, and I won. So I was really excited because I hadn't bought a copy of this book. I was just going to listen to the audiobook, but I'm so glad that I have one since I really did enjoy this book. Okay, that's it. Pretty short and sweet. Hopefully my December wrap-up will have more books than just these 4, but definitely let me know down in the comments if you're enjoying Vlogmas so far, and let me know if you have any recommendations on Vlogmas videos, because I do still have a couple of days where I don't know what I'm gonna film yet, so let me know if you have any good recommendations for some Vlogmas videos. Also, if you like wine and you like advent calendars, I have been unboxing a Costco wine advent calendar over on my TikTok. So it is linked, but then I've also been doing shorts here on YouTube. So definitely check those out. I'm going to be posting one every day and opening the wine in that advent calendar, and it's just super fun. So thank you so much for joining me on this holiday season, all the fun Christmassy things we have going on. And until next time, bye.